Welcome to Scaling Without Breaking podcast, the show for startup leaders who are done winging it and sick of everything being a bottleneck. Your team's growing, the cracks are showing, and what got you here is officially breaking. Each week, you'll hear raw stories, sharp strategies, and real talk from founders, operators, and advisors who've scaled through chaos and built companies that run without constant firefighting. If you're ready to start leading like a CEO and move beyond just surviving, you're in the right place. Here is your host, Roland Siebelink.
Hello, everybody. It's great to have you listening to the show again. Today, I am speaking with a founder who admits to wasting 3/4 of his $60 million in funding. Not on bad hires or only bad hires, not on failed products, but on the wrong go-to-market playbook. Investors wanted to see product-led growth, but this was in a market where that simply didn't work. Infrastructure software buyers don't put mission-critical purchases on credit cards. Late last year, he finally said enough, pivoted to enterprise sales, raised prices, and doubled his revenue in 12 months. So he's the CEO of the only universal container management platform used by various government and defense agencies and enterprise customers worldwide. He runs his 50-person company in what he calls founder mode, very much hands-on, rejecting the MBA playbook. He recently wrote a book about his journey, covering all the mistakes, because as he puts it, the founder journey can be incredibly lonely. With that, everyone meet my guest of this week, Neil Cresswell. And Neil is the founder and CEO of Portainer. Welcome to the show, Neil.
Thanks for having me. And you're right, it is very lonely at the top. There's no one to blame but yourself, and you only ever see problems. So, yeah.
That's exactly what we notice when we work with all those mid-stage founders and CEOs, that often the best thing is they just have somebody to vent to, right? And they cannot find it in their own team. That's pretty clear.
You can't. You've got to be this absolute rock to your team. You can't show weakness. You've got to be solid no matter what's going on in your mind. You can't share that.
That's exactly right. Well, excellent. But I did want to hear a little bit more about that story that I mentioned in the intro, Neil. You wasted half, maybe 3/4 of your funding on a go-to-market approach that didn't fit your market. Walk me through how that happened and what finally made you pivot.
Yeah, so we kind of have been looking at how IT decisions, purchasing decisions have been made of late, right? And really the old top-down CIO-driven or enterprise architecture-driven approach to purchasing software seems to have gone by the wayside, right? It doesn't. It's not commonplace anymore, and it's been replaced with this thing called bottoms-up, which is where engineers inside an organization find and procure technology that they want to use inside their enterprise, and away you go. And that naturally then relates to, well, hang on a second, it needs to be able to be purchased on a credit card by the engineer in a relatively low or no friction way. Pricing should be visible on the website. It all should be straightforward, and so follow that approach. It's often known as PLG, product-led growth. But really what it means is self-service online purchasing of software. And it absolutely makes sense for some software. Some software where the tool is an efficiency aid or something like that, where the tool is easily replaceable, it probably makes sense. But when you are core infrastructure software deeply integrated into the customer's systems, not so much. But in reality, when you are deeply integrated, enterprises or engineers even want to at least have some way to defer risk of purchase. If they're making a purchase decision to implement some core infrastructure management software, they want to have a conversation and say, look, this is my system, these are my requirements, these are my constraints. Can you deliver this for me, yes or no? And then when the vendor says yes, they've kind of deferred risk. The vendor has listened and said it's fine. That doesn't gel with a swipe your card and make an online credit card purchase. It just doesn't.
Are your clients typically more complex, larger organizations? We mentioned government agencies, enterprise companies.
Well, that was part of our pivot that we made as well. When we were trying to push down this PLG path, our deal size, like the actual customer size, was quite small. Like we're talking $7,000 kind of deal sizes, and that doesn't really equate to enterprise type customers, right? So at that stage we were very much trying to go after the smaller mid market. Once we made the pivot to enterprise sales, and that has more of a consulting sales methodology behind it, then our deal sizes have much more zeros after them now, and that by virtue of that type of customer now means that many of our customers are global 2000s. In fact, Fortune 500s or even Fortune 200s. So yes, there's been a change. When we accepted that we will sell the way the market wants to buy, then the market followed suit, and we started selling at a ticket value that aligns with the type of company using the software.
Yeah, it also sounds a little bit, Neil, like you were stuck in that famous dead zone that Jeffrey Moore refers to, right? Like if you take the proverbially $1 million, the $100 million revenue that you need to get to for an IPO classically. And he's like, well, you can get like 100 customers of $1 million, or you can get 1 million customers of $100. 100%. But the worst is 10,000 of 10,000, because that doesn't scale, right?
We absolutely were in the middle. We were absolutely in the middle. And yes, I actually saw a beautiful graph that showed you in that dead zone, and it was like, do not be here. And I'm like, we're exactly there. We aren't selling hundreds of dollars of software. We're not selling hundreds of thousands of dollars of software. We're somewhere in the middle. And it's like, man, this is all too hard. And we had customers wanting to spend $7,000, and yet we're still forcing us to go through supplier onboarding and all these assessments. And it was like, this makes no sense. It's that the cost to service that sale is just way too high for the money being charged. So.
Yeah. Neil, that must have meant you had to change your sales and marketing organization, different kinds of skill sets, different kinds of people, or did you all do it yourself?
No, so I tried to get out of founder-led sales early, probably too early. If I'm being honest, and in fact, in the book, I actually said that I did get out too early. That means that I kind of lost touch a little bit with the market. But yes, when we hired a bunch of salespeople, they were simply sales professionals to transact, and we were investing all our money in an e-commerce engine and website transaction engine. And yes, when we made the pivot, I decided no salespeople. So the people who service our inbound customer inquiry are actually engineers. So it's an engineering-centered sale now. You're not talking to a salesperson who's trying to do budget, authority, need, and timeline. You're talking to an engineer that says, how can I help you? And so they understand exactly what the customer's doing, because most of our engineers were our customer at one stage in their career. So it works really, really well. And marketing is now very much focused on helping answering the enterprise problems, like enterprise reference architectures, use cases, operational complications that companies need to consider.
Okay. So is this very related to what companies like Palantir do with their forward deployed engineers, or do you not have your engineers go out to customers to implement your software?
Our software is really intuitive. If you can't implement our software in the time it takes for you to make a cup of coffee, something's gone pretty wrong. So no, we don't necessarily need to do on-site installation assistance, but we do have the pre-sales engineers, the sales team over their engineers, they actually remain engaged with our customers through the life cycle. So when we get this inbound inquiry, hey, we're interested in Portainer, come talk to us, the engineer has a conversation, that engineer remains engaged with that customer throughout the life of that customer. So they are deeply motivated to get a good understanding of what the customer is trying to achieve, make sure there's no shelfware, make sure that we are fit for purpose, and then if not, it's their problem post-sale to make sure that the product actually works. So that's a very, very deep, enduring relationship with the enterprise customers. You see some of the inbound inquiries, and it's like, yeah, that's not a good fit. And the worst, so one thing I've learnt, right, is not winning revenue is one thing, right? Like not growing revenue is one thing. You know what's worse than that? Churn. Yeah, churn
Yes.
is really, really bad, right? So I'd far rather walk away from a potential customer that I don't think would survive past the initial first year purchase,
Mm-hmm.
because churn is far more damaging to our overall business continuity than simply saying, look, you know what, this is not a good fit. Don't buy our software. So if you have no customers, right? If you're very new, get customers, because
Mm-hmm.
sitting here as a product company, I had and have a vision for what I wanted the product to be, right? And so I'm having the team build the product that's in my brain, right? That's cool, and it's like, hey, like build it and they will come. Once you actually start getting customers, then guess what? You can ask the customers, does this resonate well with your workflow? What works, what doesn't work, what's actually a help, what's a hindrance, and then you can start to refine your product journey in line with the customer needs. So yes, initially, do what you can to get customers, assuming that they're the type of customer you want, because then those customers can help you steer the product to get more of those customers. But for goodness sake, don't win customers that you don't want, and then try and get distracted down a pivot of a product direction that you don't want to go down.
So Neil, let's pivot a little bit to the business success of the company, right? To the degree you're comfortable sharing, of course, but you implied that pivoting to enterprise sales has really led to a lot more growth. You already talked about your engineers serving as your salespeople. What is the hardest thing about scaling right now?
For me, accepting that I can't do everything as I grow.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes impossible. I already work every hour that I possibly can. I
Mm-hmm.
have the most ridiculous work-life balance. I have the most ridiculous sleeping schedule. I'm
Mm-hmm.
always connected, and eventually you become an absolute bottleneck. I have no
Mm-hmm.
desire to be sleeping on the factory floor,
Right.
to quote a famous person. So how do you scale that? And initially, I was hiring people who I thought were very strong in areas that I was weak,
Mm-hmm.
um, and that's good. It does give you blindside protection, but it also creates a lot of management friction, because then they're coming at things in a completely different way than I am. And again, that's great, right? But it means that it further reinforces the struggle to let go. So
Mm-hmm.
when you instead start hiring people in your leadership team who actually think more like me, now that's bad, right? Because what you don't want necessarily is tunnel vision. But when you hire people who act and think like me, it means that you can actually delegate and let go much sooner. Like now, from a product and engineering perspective, I've got leaders in that business who fundamentally think and act like me. So
Mm-hmm.
I have no issue just letting them run, and I leave them alone. I don't bother them with check-ins and daily stand-ups, and I don't need to. I know that they are doing what I would do if I was in their role. And so as you scale the hiring, you get more and more people in those roles who you simply trust.
So it sounds like what you're saying is like when you're optimizing for this fast growth and for running all the time, then it's actually better to have people you can trust to think like you, as opposed to trying to inject all that diverse thinking prematurely.
It's having the founder mindset,
Mm-hmm.
um, being comfortable with multiple iterations and changes, right? If someone says to me, hey, I want to build a plan for the next 12 months, my eyes roll on my head and I laugh. And it's like, man, I don't even know what's going to happen in the next 12 minutes, let alone the next 12 months.
Right.
This market we're in is incredibly dynamic, especially now with vibe coding. There's competitor solutions popping up left, right, and center, right? And so
Yeah.
we're always got to look and listen and okay, what's one of our competitors changed in their wording? Does that resonate better than what we're saying? Do we need to change things? So you are forever observing market dynamics, what messaging is resonating, what's making people's eyes glaze over, and you're forever twisting and turning and updating. And if someone wants structure and plans and a rigid way, wrong at this point in time. At this point in time,
Yeah.
you need someone who is incredibly receptive to rapid changes, because that's what it takes to be successful in the stage.
You mentioned founder mode that Brian Chesky became a bit famous for last year, right? So How do you think of all those concepts right now?
I wouldn't operate the business in any other way, to be fair.
Uh-huh.
For two things. I think as the founder, it's still my core DNA. You know,
Yeah.
like the product is still solving a problem that I am so passionately believing in, right? That I can clearly articulate what we're trying to do in a way that nobody else can. So yeah, that articulation helps sales messaging, it helps marketing messaging, it helps me explain to the product team why we're doing things in a certain way, why
Yeah.
the UX might be non-traditional, because this is the type of user we're doing. So it gives you that very, very deep inner connection. Would I run anything else but founder mode? No, I wouldn't.
How have you found those people? Like, where do you find them? How can you tell up front before hiring them that they're going to be that person who thinks like you, who acts like you as they join the company?
So face to face, you can't beat that. So meeting people and trying to figure out what they're like in person.
Yeah.
That you can't beat that. Not rushing the interview process. Making just ask them leading questions to try and figure out what their answer would be and see whether it's the same kind of answer I'd have. They're thinking.
Yeah.
I don't really care about their certifications. I really almost don't even care about the experience. I care about how they think, and how that approach a problem, more so than anything else.
And how do you then actually, in practice, remove all that firefighting? It's such a persistent problem when a company scales that they complain like, we kind of know what to do, we just don't have the time to implement it, right? How did you overcome that problem, if you have?
I haven't fully. It's an ongoing work in progress.
Right.
A lot of that is actually removing friction. Conflict exists in a vacuum. So when you are lacking internal guidance, documentations, sales playbooks, go-to-market strategies, when you're lacking direction, then everybody wants to have an opinion on how to do something, and then opinions often clash. So the easiest way of solving it is by actually having a plan and say, this is how we want to execute. And then it's like, okay, look, you either agree or you don't agree. If you don't agree, do it. You can disagree, but do it anyway, or leave. You choose.
Yeah.
But then everyone's going down the same track. You don't want people to keep bringing up different ideas. It's like, no, this is what we're doing. This is how we're doing it. Execute or don't.
Have you learned to take action faster over the years?
I think that I probably get criticized for taking action too quickly. So I've actually started to learn to sleep on something now and actually react the next day, as opposed to I'm a little bit too passionate and reactive. So I've actually had to work on slowing down.
Okay. So you mentioned in our pre-call that you have, first you mentioned here that you worked with some consultants, but in our pre-call you said you also had very bad experience with advisors who hadn't even built something and trying to advise you what to do. How do you differentiate between those that can help you and those that will basically be a waste of time?
So the world is surrounded or full of advisors, and startups, when you get funded, will be inundated with offers from advisors to come and help you, tell you what to do. Very few of them have actually done it themselves before. Very few of them have actually created something from nothing, have actually created a startup and scaled it. Most advisors have joined a startup and have exited the startup successfully, and so therefore we were successful because of me. Maybe not.
Exactly.
And also no two startups are the same. So I'm not entirely sure that there is a playbook that is repeatable. So I'm more looking for people who entered a company who were employee number 1, 2, 3, 10, and were with it and grew it and were able to give feedback that's basically going to tell me what I'm probably likely to see next week, next month, next year. That's more useful. So people who have actually been there, done that, got the actual battle scars, as opposed to those who joined and basically rode the gravy train until exit. Those ones are slightly less useful. So I'm probably a little bit more hypercritical, hyper-selective on whose advice I take now.
Okay, excellent. So Neil, let's also, I'd always like to hear a little bit more about the person behind the company, right? So if we could indulge a little bit there and learn more about Neil Cresswell as a person. So where did you grow up, Neil, and what were you like as a kid, as a teenager?
I grew up in New Zealand.
Yeah.
I'm definitely a Kiwi, first generation Kiwi though. So you can read into that what you like. How did I grow up? I was a shy, nerdy little kid at school.
Uh-huh.
Um, I was into electronics very early. My father is an engineer, and so I was tinkering with him in his workshop from a young age, and so I
Mm-hmm.
got quite used to playing with technology, and kind of realized, hey, this is kind of my future. I started working when I was 17, believe it or not.
Mm.
I joined IBM when I was 19.
Wow.
I think I was IBM New Zealand's youngest employee, if I'm not mistaken,
Mm-hmm.
which was unique. I had to deal with ageism. I was out fixing mission critical police systems or telco systems as a 20-year-old kid, and sometimes these people would be ringing my manager and saying, "Who is this child you've sent on site?" So that was humorous. That, by the way, taught me very early that age is just a number.
Right.
The actual mentality matters. You can be you can operate and think significantly older than your age.
So
I
tell me
now
about this quaint hobby of yours, underground mine exploration.
my investors are not completely across what I do there and would probably freak out. But yes, as a teenager or as a youngster, I was in the Boy Scouts and spent every weekend out in the wilderness exploring. And in New Zealand, there's gold mines, and you get to explore them. And on now resettling in America here, I'm in Phoenix, and there's 100,000 old abandoned mines here in Phoenix. Much of them is on government land, and so you've got freedom of access to explore them. And so last weekend I was just under 2,000 feet underground in an old 1904 mine, rappelling down near vertical mine shafts and just exploring the ruins of yesteryear and looking for
Wow.
cool abandoned rubbish that is now, like, I've got a cigarette tin from 1904. It's called a Prince Albert tin. I've found a dinner plate that some cowboy probably ate his cowboy beans off. There's actually the knife and fork marks on the plate from the eating. It's cool, man.
I can only
And
imagine. So it's both a climbing and an exploratory hobby, isn't it?
it is. You're underground, and I was almost 2,000 feet down, but from the top of the mountain, that was another 2,000 feet above me. So I was probably about 4,000 feet underground at that stage, and it's it's just cool. You're seeing something that not many people have seen. You're doing something that very few people would do. It takes you out of your comfort zone, and for me, it's a way for me to disconnect. There is no cell phone reception underground, so guess what? I get no Slack notifications, no LinkedIn pop
Right.
ups, no emails, and I deal with it when I get out. And 7 hours underground, your mind is refreshed. So it's a great way to really keep the body at its peak. You can be
Yeah.
mentally exhausted, but you should also be physically exhausted too, because then it's a nice balance.
Well, Neil, it sounds like we're getting to the end of the podcast recording. So, last question, of course, where can people reach you, and where can they find that book that you wrote?
Neil.Cresswell at Portainer.io is the best way, and
Yeah.
also on LinkedIn. The book I wrote, it's actually called Lessons from the Trenches. It is on Kindle. I have priced it at 99 cents because I don't want to make money out of it. I just want to try and share my learnings because the learnings were hard and expensive. So you can find it. I'll probably do a version 2 of it with the last 2 years of updates added to it.
Even more learnings. Yeah. Never
Even more
stop learning,
learnings.
right?
I've made slightly less mistakes now than the first 4 years, but you never know. I am. If people add me on LinkedIn, I'll accept. I try to be incredibly accessible.
Excellent. And of course, if people know me and don't know Neil yet and would like an intro, I'm always happy to provide. Neil, out of all those learnings you wrote down, what's the one thing you would impress on founders coming right behind you that are a little bit less ahead in their journey? What's the one thing?
Don't let go of founder-led sales too early. Everyone will tell you to step back, to hire a
Yeah,
sales leader and let go. Do not.
do not.
They simply want to run a sales playbook. It's mechanical. as a founder in sales, we can not only articulate the benefit of our product the best, but we can also listen for signals that say, hang on a second, we're not quite right, the messaging's not quite right, the product needs some minor adjustments. Very, very, very rarely will you find a sales leader who can do that as well. So, everyone tells the founder, step back, you're not scalable, step back, wrong. Don't. So number one rule, the founder should stay in as long as absolutely possible.
Okay, excellent. Very good. And building out that founder mentality throughout the team so that they can ultimately trust everyone else to do their job too, right?
As you scale, absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, this has been an absolute pleasure. Neil Cresswell, the founder and CEO of Portainer. It's been a pleasure having you on the Scaling Without Breaking podcast.
Thanks for having me.
And for everyone else all listening in, we will have a new amazing founder, almost as good as Neil, on the podcast next week. Thank you so much.
The Scaling Without Breaking podcast requires more than a conversation. It takes action, research, and collective wisdom. If today's episode resonated with you, we'd love to hear your insights. Join the conversation and help us shape the future together. We'll be back with more stories, strategies, and real-world solutions that are making a difference for everyone. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe, rate, write a review, and share it with someone you think would benefit from it too. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.